Well, I really hate to tell you this. This really got some bad news. Okay, so as you know, we live off grid. Now, we don't live a million miles away from anybody. We live kind of, I guess, I don't want to say populated area. It's not that populated, but there are people around. Obviously, we have a neighbor, you know, both sides of us. But I feel like that being off grid means I don't need to rely on anybody. I don't, electric company, the water company, nothing. I can take care of myself. And I think I've proven it. At least to the folks that have been around for a while, they know that I built my own tiny house. I've got 15 years worth of firewood, regardless of what anybody says. This will last more than 3 years, considering this stuff over here is almost 3 years old and it's still not even dry yet because it's still green, because it still has bark around it. The stuff that doesn't have bark is below 20%, but that stuff isn't. That kind of brings me to a point that people seem to have this idea of everything they understand, and obviously I'm wrong because that goes against what they believe. In order to actually understand what I do, I would say that you have to actually do it. The other day I made a video, I was talking about prepper channels. And there's some prepper channels out there that are pretty good, but there are others that aren't. There are those who live the life. They actually try to test themselves. I guess I should have said that in the video. They test themselves. No sooner did I make that video, one of the channels I watch, he comes out and he shows us his farm animals. And he says, there's my preps. And I'm like, yeah, I like that guy. He shows me his preps. Got cows and pigs and different things. He is going to be in a better situation than somebody who's stockpiling. I've said this a million times. I don't think stockpiling is the greatest idea if you're thinking about prepping. I think actually the best prepper are the people who are not prepping. They are living self-sustaining as much as possible. Now I know there's going to be people, oh, you don't live self-sustaining. I've said that Carolyn and I probably live about 90% self-sustaining. And it really wouldn't take much for us to be completely self-sustaining. There would be some hard times, don't get me wrong. I'm well aware of the hard times. In that video I was talking about, if I chopped off my arm, obviously I would have to seek medical attention, or if it was an SHTF, you know, stuff hits the fan, I would have to just wrap it up and hope that I didn't get too bad of an infection. Now I do have a few medical supplies that I try to keep on hand. Antibiotics that doesn't need a prescription. I know how to get those. I have some. Of course, it has an expiration date, but I'm not too sure they expire. I think they just put an expiration date on it, but whatever. You do the best you can, hope for the best, and that what you have will get you through. I suspect the Great Depression would be the biggest thing that would be a threat to us as an SHTF. And I've said this in previous videos, that the people who did well were the people that were already kind of living self-sustaining, the farmers. You know, they had cows available. Don't get me wrong, people lost a lot of money with their farms, but the people who suffered the most and jumped out of windows were the people in the cities. Wall Street work people and people who lost millions, thousands. But I remember seeing this picture one time, and I thought, man, that is just a fascinating picture. And they somehow made it colored. It was a colored picture. And it was a family. Man, wife. He had tattered clothes, not torn, but tattered. You can tell he'd been out there working all day, and she had her hair kind of messed up a little. But they're eating. And I thought, you know, that's the important part, is they're eating. The other day I made a video, and I was talking about SHTF, and I hope it doesn't happen, because, I mean, a lot of people are going to suffer. People are not ready for it. They go in there with their daily lives. They know there's something wrong, but they're not really prepared. They don't know how to prepare. In the comment section, somebody says, I can't wait for the day for SHTF. I can take care of my family just fine. And then you get these people who thump in their chest, anybody come around my property and they got a bullet coming. I don't know about that. I mean, really, we're going to just, that's the first thing that's going to come to mind is. And then you got to wonder, do these people have the emotional ability to actually do what they're saying? I mean, think about it. People are talking about the hordes of people are going to come over and take my chickens. I've talked about that in that video the other day. I don't think that's going to be the problem. I think it's going to be mom and dad and a little, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kid are going to be walking up the street and they're going to see me out in the yard or whatever, and they send their kid up to me. Excuse me, mister, I'm really hungry. Do you have any food? And you got to make a really tough decision. Do you have the emotional capability to say, I'm sorry, sweetie, I don't have any food? Because you know if you give these people food, that's going to take away from your family. Or that child, because remember, you don't know the parents are out there, that child all of a sudden brings in 10 or 15 people behind them. And now you got to feed them all. Do you have the emotional capability and the ability to actually take care of yourself? A lot of people in these videos are thumping their chest, talking about how they got it. But they never really show us what they got. They tell us what we need. Oh, you got to have your stockpile of rice and beans. But how long is that going to last? I was telling you about this guy who's in my comment section who said, I can't wait for SHTF. Well, I understand that mindset. I used to be a prepper. I'm not a prepper anymore. And while I was prepping, I even knew that I couldn't actually deal with the situation. I knew it. We was on city water, had really no way of getting water. And I think a lot of these people who are on YouTube actually don't have the ability to take care of themselves if something were to happen. They hope that they can find a way. They think they're going to solve their situation after SHTF happens. But you're assuming certain events are going to take place. Let's say I was hooked up to water and I always thought, well, that's no big deal if something happened. I'll be able to go out and get water from the creeks and different things. But I knew in reality that if I went to a creek to get water, water's going to be a valuable commodity. And there are going to be people there, dangerous people, who want to sell you the water. They want to trade. So to get this mindset, oh, I'm just going to do this. Well, if you're thinking that you're going to change your situation during SHTF, it's too late. The problem with the thumping of the chest is, and saying, I can't wait for SHTF, is in today's society, and I'm not criticizing anybody, I was in the situation, I was whipped by my wife, my ex-wife. I was very whipped. If she said jump, I would say how high, and then she said, well, don't ask questions, just do what I tell you. And, okay. When you're whipped like that in life, you get up at 5:30 in the morning, you go to work, you're told what to do all day. Then you come home and your wife is telling you what to do all day. And you really don't have a sense of being a man. You just do what you're told to do and you're just whipped all the time. And in today's society, men are like that. So you don't get to do what is instinctual to you. You don't get to be a man. Your testosterone is telling you you want to go out and do these things. Once a year you get to go out deer hunting, and that's your man thing for the year. But when you don't get a deer that year, you're like, oh, how depressing. So everything beats you down, taking away what you feel as a manhood. So you're hoping for SHTF, because when that happens, then all of a sudden you get to take care of the family and hunt and survive and feed your family the way your instincts are telling you to do it. So in the meantime, you're just thumping your chest, telling everybody how great you are, when you never really proved it. You've never shown anybody how to do it. And don't get me wrong, I was the same way. I completely understand this problem. I buy this property and I build my own house, and boy, I thought, man, this is great, I'm gonna build my own house. But by the time I was done building the house, I'm like, oh, I'm never doing this again. I'm never going to build another thing. That completely burned me out. It took my manhood and tested it, and it really pushed me to the limits. Every day I'm having to learn something new, and I'm having to cut this board and this. It was just, it took a lot out of me, and it showed me, wow, I'm not as great as I thought I was. And then I got to split all this firewood, go to collect it and split it, use them all. And you start to sweat and you think, okay. And eventually you're like, okay, well, I hope I got enough now. And it kind of takes it out of you, this urge to be a man. And then you raise your own chickens, and now you're providing your own food. And so then you think, wait a minute, I don't have this urge for the end of the world. I'm just quite content. I'm taking care of myself. I'm happy. And I'm not even sure I'm making total sense. I've tried to explain this in other videos, and I'm not sure anybody really got the point. I'm not criticizing anybody. I was there. Over time, being here, I've been able to just be happy. I don't have this drive for the end of the world to prove myself, my manliness. I don't have to prove it. I already did. It's right here. This keeps me warm. Chickens keep me fed. The house keeps me out of the elements. What more can you ask for? So here's where I would start is if you have an addiction or you like to splurge on things, smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol. I mean, I did it all. I smoked since I was 9 years old until I was about 40-ish, 41-ish. I don't remember when I exactly quit, but I'm 51 now. So I've quit that. I don't drink anymore. I don't need to. I don't have a problem with my self-esteem anymore. I don't have a problem with needing to be a man. And so I don't have this need to cover up those feelings with external items like alcohol or cigarettes or any of that. Now you can start saving some money. Now you can go get yourself a piece of property. Then build yourself a tiny house. I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't know how to build anything. Well, I didn't either. I had to ask people. I had to look on YouTube. There was a lot of things I had no idea how to do, and I figured it all out. So you build yourself a house, and then you get that urge out of your system. You're like, okay, I've got that. I'm burned out. I'm never doing that again. And then you go and get some firewood. And there's something to say about firewood. If you're really wanting to express your manhood to yourself, being able to keep yourself warm with firewood. Maybe you watched that movie Castaway with Tom Hanks where he made fire. I made fire! If you kind of take that sense, he became a man that day. He was able to express his manhood by making fire. That primitive instinct of making fire, he was able to make it. Well, the same thing applies here. I've got my heat, I can cook my food, I got everything I need right here. And then when you can tame an animal and make it give you food, and that also satisfies that sense of manhood. So I have the chickens and they produce eggs. And I know that's not the manly thing. You need a pig or you need a cow. And see, that's the thing. Is you need some manly things. Everybody's talking to me about these manly things. Canning food, that's another one. I've been called a wuss before. A wussy, except replace the W with the P because I can food. But being able to preserve food somehow makes me feel pretty manly. I don't need a smoker. You don't need a smoker. I don't need a smoker. So I can now be called a wussy and no, I'm not. I don't care if you want to name call me while you're sitting in your home, drinking your alcohol, wishing for the end of times, SHTF, so you can prove your manhood. Quite satisfied that I proved it to myself. So if you'll click this up next box, take the video where I was talking about preppers thumping their chest. So hope I can inspire you to go out and do something manly so you can satisfy your dreams. Thanks for watching.